Admiral Zektar had seen war across 1,000 worlds. His forearms moved with practiced precision across the command console as he reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The bridge of the Dominion flagship Eternal Conquest hummed with activity, but something felt different about this campaign. Something that made his spine ridges twitch with unease. "Admiral," called out Communications Officer Velnura, her voice carrying the usual confidence of the Zephyrian High Command. "We've received confirmation from the advanced scouts. The third planet in this system shows signs of a primitive civilization. Pre-warp technology, limited to their single world." Zektar's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his species. Another backward world to add to the Dominion's glory. What resistance can we expect? The tactical officer, a hulking Korthak named Brune, pulled up holographic displays showing crude metal vessels floating in the planet's oceans and primitive flying machines in their atmosphere. "Minimal, sir. They still use chemical propulsion and kinetic weapons. Our advance estimates suggest complete conquest within 72 hours. 72 hours? Zektar's eye stalks swiveled toward his subordinate. "Brune, you're being generous. Most primitive worlds fall within 24 hours once we deploy our assault fleets." The bridge crew shared the common understanding that had carried the Dominion across half the galaxy. Superior technology, overwhelming force, and absolute certainty in their methods had never failed them. They had crushed the crystal cities of Arcturus Prime, reduced the floating kingdoms of Nebula's Edge to cosmic dust, and absorbed the ancient libraries of 100 civilizations into their vast archives. Zektar had personally overseen 43 planetary conquests. Each followed the same pattern: orbital bombardment to cripple major population centers, deployment of ground forces to secure strategic resources, and, finally, the systematic integration of surviving populations into the Dominion's labor networks. Clean, efficient, predictable. "Sir," Velnara's voice interrupted his thoughts. "We're receiving transmissions from the planet's surface. Multiple sources, all using different frequencies and languages. Put the strongest signal through the universal translator." The bridge filled with crackling static before resolving into a voice speaking in halting, accented Galactic Standard. "Unknown vessels. This is Admiral Chun of the United Earth Defense Force. You have entered sovereign human territory. State your intentions immediately." Brune's massive frame shook with laughter. "Sovereign territory? Admiral, they think they can negotiate with us." "Open a channel," Zektar commanded. When the connection stabilized, he leaned forward, his image broadcasting to the primitive world below. "I am Admiral Zektar of the Galactic Dominion. Your world now falls under our authority. Surrender unconditionally, and your population will be relocated to appropriate labor facilities. Resist, and face complete annihilation." The response came after a pause that Zektar interpreted as fear and confusion. "Admiral Zektar, this is Admiral Chun. Humanity refuses your demands. We will defend our world with everything we have." The transmission ended. Brune's tactical display showed the planet's surface in detail now, revealing massive cities housing millions of beings, vast agricultural regions, and industrial complexes belching primitive chemical smoke into their atmosphere. "Admiral, should we begin standard bombardment procedures?" "No." Zektar studied the readings with growing interest. "These humans intrigue me. Deploy reconnaissance drones first. I want to understand their military capabilities before we crush them. It's been too long since we faced even token resistance." Over the next 18 hours, the drones returned data that painted a picture Zektar had seen countless times before. The humans had gathered their military forces in predictable defensive positions around their major population centers. Their weapons were crude, but numerous: projectile launchers, explosive devices, armored vehicles that crawled across the ground on tracks or wheels. "Sir," reported Science Officer Thyron, her crystalline features reflecting the data streams, "their technology is approximately 800 years behind our current standards. Their most advanced weapons appear to be thermonuclear devices, but our shields can easily absorb that level of energy output." "And their numbers?" "Planetary population approximately 8 billion. Military forces number in the hundreds of millions, but they're scattered across multiple nation-states that seem to have been in conflict with each other until our arrival." Zektar nodded. The pattern held true. Primitive civilizations always forgot their internal squabbles when faced with external conquest, but it was always too little, too late. Very well. Begin Phase 1 bombardment. Target their major industrial centers and military installations. Leave their cities intact for now. We'll need the infrastructure. The Dominion fleet moved into attack formation. 150 vessels, each capable of cracking a moon, positioned themselves in optimal bombardment positions. Zektar had seen this dance of death so many times he could predict every movement, every response, every final moment when resistance crumbled into surrender. Energy beams lanced down from orbit, striking targets with surgical precision. Military bases vanished in brilliant explosions. Industrial complexes melted into slag. Communication centers went silent. By all tactical calculations, the humans should have sued for peace within 6 hours. But they didn't. Instead, something unprecedented happened. The scattered human forces began moving, not toward their major cities for last-ditch defensive stands, but outward, dispersing into smaller groups. Their radio chatter, what little the Dominion could intercept through their crude encryption, suggested coordination rather than panic. "Admiral," Thyron reported, her voice carrying a note of confusion. "The human response pattern doesn't match our predictive models." Elaborate. When faced with orbital bombardment, primitive species typically either surrender immediately or mass their forces for hopeless defensive stands around their cultural centers. The humans are doing neither. They're spreading out. Zektar's primary eyes focused on the tactical display, showing thousands of small human units moving across their planet's surface like scatter patterns. Perhaps they're attempting to hide their remaining population in remote areas. A delaying tactic. That would be logical, sir. But our deep scans show they're not heading toward natural shelters or remote settlements. They appear to be taking positions in urban areas, but not in defensive formations. It's almost as if what, officer? As if they're surrounding our projected landing zones. For the first time in his military career, Zektar felt something he had no name for. The sensation crawled along his nerve clusters like ice water, settling in his brain stem with uncomfortable weight. He dismissed it as fatigue from the long journey. Deploy the first wave of ground forces. 6 battle groups to secure the primary continent's capital regions. These humans will learn what it means to face the Dominion's might. The troop transports descended through the atmosphere like falling stars, their shields glowing against the friction of entry. Each transport carried 500 elite Dominion soldiers equipped with energy weapons, powered armor, and battlefield experience from dozens of conquered worlds. Zektar watched the landing operation unfold on his screens with practiced eyes. The lead transports touched down in carefully selected landing zones, wide open spaces near major population centers, defensible positions that allowed for rapid deployment, and secure perimeters. That's when everything went wrong. The first explosion caught the lead transport as its ramp was lowering. Not an energy weapon or even a primitive missile, but something that seemed to erupt from the ground itself. The massive vessel buckled and crashed, its armored hull torn open like paper. "Report," Zektar barked. "Unknown weapons fire from multiple positions," came Brune's strained voice. "The explosions appear to be chemical-based, but the delivery method is unclear." More explosions blossomed across the landing zone. Transport after transport erupted in fire and twisted metal. The few that managed to deploy their troops found themselves under attack from every direction at once. Not from visible positions, but from concealed locations that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. "Impossible," muttered Thyron. "Our scans showed no significant weapons emplacements in those areas." The communications channel filled with panicked voices from the ground forces. "We're taking fire from inside the buildings. They're in the sewers. Sir, they're attacking from above and below simultaneously." Zektar watched his elite soldiers, veterans who had crushed resistance on 40 worlds, being systematically destroyed by an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't predict, and couldn't understand. Energy weapon fire that should have vaporized concrete walls seemed to hit nothing. Soldiers in powered armor reported being attacked by enemies who appeared, struck, and vanished before return fire could be targeted. "This is Ground Commander Vorth," came a desperate transmission. "We need immediate orbital support." The enemy is using tactics we've never encountered. They're not fighting like any primitive species in our databases. Zektar found himself staring at casualty reports that made no sense. In 6 hours of ground combat, his forces had sustained 70% casualties while inflicting minimal damage on the human forces. More disturbing still, captured equipment showed signs of study and analysis. The humans weren't just fighting, they were learning, adapting, incorporating Dominion technology into their own weapons systems with impossible speed. Admiral Velnara's voice was tight with barely controlled fear. We're receiving another transmission from the human commander. Put it through. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired but far from defeated. Behind him, Zektar could see what appeared to be a command center bustling with activity. Admiral Zektar, I trust you're beginning to understand that this won't be the easy conquest you expected. Zektar's mandibles clicked with forced confidence. We've fought wars with sticks and stones, with swords and shields, with chemical explosives and nuclear weapons. We've practiced urban warfare, desert warfare, jungle warfare, Arctic warfare, and underwater warfare. We've learned to fight in every environment our planet offers, against every type of enemy we could imagine. Chen paused, and when he continued, his voice carried a weight that made every being on the Dominion bridge uncomfortable. The only thing that's kept us from destroying ourselves completely is that we've always held back. We've had rules, conventions, agreements about what weapons we wouldn't use, what targets we wouldn't hit, what lines we wouldn't cross. Your point, human? My point, Admiral, is that you just made us stop holding back. You threatened our entire species. You declared war on every human being that ever existed. And now you're about to learn what it really means when humanity goes to war without any rules at all. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the eternal conquest in absolute silence. Zektar stared at the blank screen, that cold sensation spreading through his neural pathways like poison. Around him, his command crew looked to him for orders, for reassurance, for the confident leadership that had carried them across the galaxy. For the first time in his career, Admiral Zektar had no idea what to do next. The next 72 hours taught Admiral Zektar that everything he understood about warfare was wrong. It began with the communications blackout. Overnight, every Dominion signal between the fleet and ground forces simply stopped. Not jammed in any conventional sense, but redirected, corrupted, turned into weapons against his own forces. When his technicians attempted to re-establish contact, they found their own communication arrays had been compromised. Somehow, impossibly, the humans had infiltrated systems that should have been completely isolated from their primitive technology. Sir, Science Officer Thyron reported, her crystalline form trembling with frequencies that indicated deep distress. We're detecting massive electromagnetic signatures across the planet's surface. The humans appear to be using their entire electrical grid as a weapon. Zektar studied the readings with growing unease. The patterns made no sense according to any military doctrine in the Dominion archives. What type of weapon? That's just it, Admiral. It's not a weapon in any traditional sense. They've somehow turned their cities into massive signal amplifiers. Every radio tower, every electrical line, every piece of metal infrastructure is broadcasting interference patterns specifically designed to disrupt our neural implants. The implications hit Zektar like a physical blow. Dominion military effectiveness depended on instantaneous communication through bioneural links. Their soldiers, their ships, their entire command structure relied on technology that interfaced directly with their nervous systems. And somehow, these primitive humans had figured out how to turn that advantage into a crippling weakness. Ground Forces Status Report, Zektar demanded. Tactical Officer Brune's response came slowly, his massive frame hunched over displays that flickered with static. Unknown, sir. We've lost contact with all ground units as of 6 hours ago. Last reports indicated unusual resistance patterns. Define unusual. Sir, the humans aren't just fighting our soldiers. They're studying them. Live capture of Dominion personnel has increased by 400%. Captured equipment is being reverse-engineered and deployed against our forces within hours. And the tactics? Brune paused, his voice carrying an emotion Zektar had never heard from his veteran tactical officer. Sir, they're fighting wars we've never seen before. Through the static-filled screens, fragmented reports painted a picture that defied everything Zektar thought he knew about primitive species. Human forces had divided into thousands of small units, each operating independently, but somehow coordinated with perfect precision. They struck from impossible angles, used improvised weapons that shouldn't have been effective against Dominion armor, and displayed a level of technological adaptation that bordered on supernatural. "Show me the latest battlefield recordings," Zektar ordered. The holographic display filled with images that would haunt Zektar for the rest of his life. Dominion soldiers in powered armor, equipment that had conquered worlds, being systematically hunted through urban environments by humans using weapons cobbled together from household materials. Energy rifles being countered by mirrors and reflective surfaces arranged in patterns that turned the weapons against their users. Armored vehicles destroyed by explosives hidden in children's toys and food containers. But what truly disturbed Zektar was the look in the human's eyes. Not the desperate fury of a cornered species or the fanatical devotion of religious zealots, but the cold, calculating focus of beings who had finally found a problem worthy of their complete attention. "Admiral." Communications Officer Velnara's voice carried a tremor that matched Zektar's growing dread. "We're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's coming from one of our own communication arrays." "One of our arrays? That's impossible. Our equipment is biometrically locked." "Sir, they're using the captured biosignatures from our ground forces to access our systems." The implications of that statement settled over the bridge like a shroud. The humans hadn't just captured Dominion soldiers. They'd found ways to extract and use their biological authentication codes. In less than 3 days, these supposedly primitive beings had accomplished something no other species had managed in 800 years of Dominion expansion. "Put the transmission through." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a human female in military uniform standing in what was clearly a captured Dominion command center. Behind her, Zektar could see humans working alongside captured Dominion technology, integrating it with their own systems in ways that should have been impossible. "Admiral Zektar," the woman said, her voice carrying the same disturbing calm that Chun had displayed. "I am General Sarah Morrison, United Earth Defense Force. I believe we need to talk." "You will surrender immediately," Zektar responded, though the words felt hollow even as he spoke them. "Return our captured personnel and technology, and we might consider allowing your species to survive." Morrison's expression didn't change. "Admiral, I don't think you understand your situation. In the past 72 hours, we've captured or destroyed 60% of your ground forces. We've compromised your communication networks, reverse-engineered your weapon systems, and identified critical vulnerabilities in your fleet architecture." "Impossible. Your technology is centuries behind ours." Morrison corrected. "Admiral, you've made a fundamental error in your assumptions about humanity. You assumed that because our starting technology was primitive, we would remain primitive. You didn't account for what happens when you give humans something new to figure out." She gestured to the equipment behind her. "Every piece of technology you've deployed against us has become a learning opportunity. Your energy weapons taught us new principles of physics. Your armor showed us advanced materials science. Your ships revealed construction techniques we'd never imagined. And we've had 3 days to put it all together." Zektar felt that cold sensation spreading through his system again, but now he recognized it for what it was: fear. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that in 72 hours, humanity has advanced our technology by approximately 3 centuries. And, unlike your species, Admiral, we don't have any rules about how far we're willing to go to win." The transmission shifted to show the planet's surface from orbit. What Zektar saw made his mandibles lock in shock. Massive construction projects had appeared seemingly overnight, structures that combined Dominion technology with human engineering in ways that created something entirely new. Energy collectors that shouldn't have been possible to build were drawing power from the planet's core. Launch facilities were accelerating projectiles to velocities that made them effective orbital weapons. "This is impossible," Thyron whispered. "The construction requirements alone would take decades with our most advanced methods." Morrison's voice continued. "The difference between your species and ours, Admiral, is that you've become comfortable with your superiority. You fought the same wars against the same types of enemies for so long that you've forgotten how to adapt. But humans, we've never had the luxury of certainty. The display showed human forces moving across the planet's surface with coordination that spoke of a single controlling intelligence. But Zektar realized it wasn't artificial intelligence. It was something far more dangerous. It was 8 billion individual minds all focused on the same problem, all contributing their unique perspectives to a solution that none of them could have achieved alone. For 3,000 years, Morrison continued, humanity has been at war with itself. Every conflict, every battle, every tactical innovation has been preserved, studied, and improved upon. We've made warfare into an art form, a science, and a religion all at once. And until today, we've only ever used a fraction of our capabilities because we were fighting each other. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried a weight that made the bridge crew involuntarily step backward from their stations. You've accomplished something no human enemy ever has, Admiral. You've united our entire species against a single threat. 8 billion humans, working together, with 3,000 years of accumulated military knowledge and captured alien technology. The tactical displays began showing something that defied every principle of space warfare Zektar knew. Launch signatures from the planet's surface indicated that the humans were firing projectiles into orbit. Not conventional missiles, but solid masses accelerated to incredible velocities using principles derived from captured Dominion technology. Evasive maneuvers, Zektar shouted, but it was too late. The first projectile struck the heavy cruiser Inexorable Victory amidships. The vessel, designed to withstand orbital bombardment and equipped with shields that could deflect energy weapons capable of cracking moons, simply broke apart. Not vaporized or blown up, broken, as if something had hit it with enough kinetic force to overcome every defensive system the Dominion had ever developed. Shields at full power. Brune roared, but the second projectile proved that shields were useless against solid matter moving at significant fractions of light speed. The destroyer Eternal Vigilance folded in on itself like paper, its advanced armor providing no more protection than tissue. Admiral, Morrison's voice cut through the chaos on the bridge. You have one opportunity to end this. Withdraw your forces immediately, and we'll let you leave. Continue this war, and we'll show you what it looks like when humanity really tries to kill something. Zektar stared at the tactical displays showing his fleet, the same fleet that had conquered 43 worlds, being systematically destroyed by projectiles fired from the surface of a world he'd assumed would fall in less than 3 days. Around him, his command crew looked to him for orders, but for the first time in his career, Admiral Zektar understood that he was no longer in command of this situation. He was no longer predator. He was prey, and 8 billion humans had just figured out how to hunt. Admiral Zektar made the hardest decision of his military career. With half his fleet destroyed, and the remainder under constant bombardment from weapons that shouldn't have existed, he ordered a full retreat to the system's outer edge. The proud vessels of the Galactic Dominion, those same ships that had brought terror to 1,000 worlds, fled like prey animals from a planet that had been marked for easy conquest. But the humans weren't finished with them. Admiral, Science Officer Thyron reported, her voice barely above a whisper, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. They're building something. Zektar studied the long-range sensors with growing horror. In the weeks since his fleet's retreat, the humans hadn't been resting. They'd been constructing. Using captured Dominion technology as a foundation, they'd built structures that dwarfed anything in the Dominion's engineering databases. Orbital elevators stretched into space, carrying raw materials from their planet's surface to construction platforms that seemed to appear overnight. What are they building? Unknown, sir. The energy patterns suggest some form of propulsion system, but the scale. Thyron's crystalline form flickered with stress patterns. Sir, the power requirements alone should be impossible for a single planet to generate. Should be impossible had become the most commonly spoken phrase aboard the Eternal Conquest. Everything about humanity's response to the Dominion invasion had been impossible by every standard military doctrine. Yet here they were, watching a primitive species systematically dismantle 800 years of tactical assumptions. Communications incoming, Velnara announced. Same source as before. General Morrison appeared on the main screen, but She wasn't standing in a captured command center anymore. Behind her, through vast transparent walls, Zektar could see construction that defied comprehension. Ships were taking shape, not copies of Dominion vessels, but something entirely new. Designs that combined human engineering with alien technology in ways that created something both recognizable and utterly foreign. Admiral Zektar, Morrison began, and her voice carried a weariness that spoke of sleepless days and impossible decisions. We need to discuss the future. You will surrender immediately, Zektar responded, though the words sounded hollow even to him. The Dominion will not, Admiral. Morrison's interruption was quiet, but absolute. Please stop. We both know how this is going to end. The question is whether we can find a way to end it without destroying everything. Zektar felt his spine ridges flatten against his back. In all his years of conquest, he had never heard those words from his own mouth. What are you proposing? The same thing I proposed a week ago. You leave. You go back to your Dominion. And you never come to this system again. And if we refuse? Morrison gestured to the construction behind her. Then, we come to you. The implications of that statement settled over the bridge like poison gas. The humans weren't just defending their world anymore. They were preparing to take the war to the Dominion itself. Admiral, Tactical Officer Brune spoke up, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. Our long-range scans are showing acceleration signatures. Multiple contacts, leaving the planet's orbital space. How many? Unknown, sir. The interference patterns are too sophisticated to penetrate, but preliminary estimates suggest. Brune paused, checking his readings 3 times before continuing. Sir, it appears the entire planet is moving. Zektar's mandibles locked in shock. Explain. The humans have somehow turned their entire world into a spacecraft. The energy signatures we've been tracking weren't for individual ships, they were for planetary-scale propulsion systems. On the main screen, Morrison nodded as if she could hear their conversation. You understand now, Admiral. For the past week, while your fleet has been sitting at the edge of our system, 8 billion humans have been working on a single project. We've turned Earth into something that has never existed before, a mobile fortress with the industrial capacity of an entire civilization. The tactical displays confirmed what seemed impossible. The third planet in the system was indeed moving, accelerating out of its orbital path with technology that combined every principle of physics the humans had learned from captured Dominion equipment. This is impossible, Thyron whispered. The gravitational stresses alone should tear the planet apart. Should be impossible, Morrison repeated with a slight smile. Admiral, you keep using that phrase. I don't think you understand what it means when you tell humans something is impossible. She gestured to something off-screen, and the display shifted to show the approaching planet in detail. What Zektar saw redefined his understanding of engineering on a cosmic scale. The entire world had been turned into a weapon. Continent-sized energy collectors fed power to propulsion systems that moved a planet like a starship. Launch bays the size of countries housed fleets of vessels built from principles that no single species should have been able to master in mere days. The thing about humans, Admiral, is that we've never been a single species. We're thousands of different cultures, each with their own approach to solving problems. When you united us against a common enemy, you didn't just get our technology, you got our diversity. The display showed construction happening in real time across the planet's surface. Zektar could see fusion reactors using Dominion power generation principles, but built with human efficiency improvements. Weapons systems that combined alien energy technology with human tactical innovations. Shield generators that used physics from 6 different captured Dominion systems, integrated by minds that had never been taught it was impossible. Our engineers learned your metallurgy and made it better. Our physicists studied your energy weapons and found ways to make them more efficient. Our military strategists analyzed your tactics and developed counters you've never seen before. Morrison paused, and when she continued, her voice carried a weight that made every being on the Dominion bridge step backward. But, most importantly, Admiral, our historians studied your conquest records. We know how you fight. We know your strategies, your weaknesses, your standard operational procedures. The planet ship was accelerating now, moving faster than anything its size should have been able to move. More disturbing still, it wasn't alone. The sensors were detecting escort vessels, ships built with human Dominion hybrid technology that registered as completely new configurations. We know about your home worlds, Admiral. We know about your industrial centers, your military academies, your government structures. In 1 week, we've learned more about the Galactic Dominion than most species learn in centuries. Zektar realized with growing horror what the humans were planning. They weren't just defending their world. They were preparing to dismantle the entire Dominion infrastructure that had taken millennia to build. You have one last chance, Morrison continued. Order your remaining ships to withdraw immediately. Send a message to your high command that humanity is now off limits. Declare this system a forbidden zone and never return. And if I refuse, then you'll discover what it looks like when a species that has spent 3,000 years perfecting the art of total war decides to apply those lessons on a galactic scale. The planet ship was close enough now that individual surface features were visible on the tactical displays. Cities that had been converted into fortress factories. Agricultural regions that had been transformed into massive industrial complexes. What had been a world was now a mobile civilization, carrying the combined knowledge and fury of 8 billion humans toward targets they had identified from captured Dominion databases. Admiral, Communications Officer Velnara reported, her voice shaking, "We're receiving transmissions from throughout Dominion space. Multiple worlds are reporting unusual phenomena." What type of phenomena? Unknown spacecraft entering Dominion systems. Ships using technology that doesn't match any known configuration. And Admiral, she paused, her voice barely audible. The unknown ships are broadcasting human communication signals. Zektar felt his world collapse around him. The impossible had become reality. In 1 week, humanity had not only fought off a Dominion invasion, but had somehow managed to reverse engineer enough technology to launch their own interstellar missions. Ships that had left Earth weeks ago were already appearing in Dominion space, carrying human crews and human technology to worlds that had never imagined such a threat was possible. How? Zektar asked, though he wasn't sure if he was speaking to Morrison or to the universe itself. Morrison's expression softened slightly, showing something that might have been pity. Admiral, your species conquered 43 worlds by following the same pattern every time. Orbital bombardment, ground invasion, technological superiority. You've been fighting the same war for 800 years. She gestured to the approaching planet ship. But humans have been fighting different wars against different enemies with different technologies for 3,000 years. Every conflict taught us something new. Every defeat forced us to innovate. Every victory showed us a new way to solve problems. The tactical displays showed the full scope of what humanity had accomplished. Ships built with impossible speed, using construction techniques that shouldn't have worked. Weapons systems that combined principles from dozens of different technologies. Communication networks that turned captured Dominion equipment into components of a larger human intelligence network. When you invaded our world, you didn't just attack 8 billion humans, Admiral. You attacked 8 billion individual problem solvers, each with their own perspective on how to fight back. You gave us a problem that required everything we'd ever learned about war, engineering, physics, and survival. Morrison's voice took on a tone that made Zektar understand why his soldiers had been so systematically defeated. And then, you gave us captured alien technology to work with. The planet ship was close enough now that weapons targeting could have locked onto the Dominion fleet. But no attacks came. Instead, Morrison made an offer that would haunt Zektar for the rest of his life. Admiral, you can return to your high command, and tell them that humanity exists. Tell them we're not interested in conquest or expansion. We just want to be left alone. She paused, and her next words carried the weight of absolute certainty. But also tell them that if anyone ever threatens Earth again, we won't just defend ourselves. We'll do what humans do when we're really angry, which is, we'll solve the problem permanently. Admiral Zektar looked at his tactical displays, showing a planet-sized weapon approaching his fleet. He looked at his communications boards, reporting human ships appearing throughout Dominion space. He looked at his casualty reports, showing how 8 billion primitives had systematically dismantled the finest military force in the galaxy. For the first time in 800 years of Dominion expansion, an admiral of the Galactic Dominion gave the order to retreat not from a battle, but from a war. As the Eternal Conquest and its remaining escort vessels jumped to hyperspace, Admiral Zektar composed his report to the High Command. He would tell them about humanity's technological adaptation, their tactical innovations, their impossible unity in the face of annihilation. But he would also tell them something else, something that would ensure that no Dominion fleet ever approached the Sol system again. He would tell them that there was a species in the galaxy that had perfected the art of war not by conquering others, but by conquering themselves. A species that had turned conflict into evolution, defeat into innovation, and peace into preparation. He would tell them that humanity had spent 3,000 years learning how to fight wars they couldn't win, and they had gotten very, very good at it.